our meeting tonight to order, and our first item of business is public comment section, and we do have two guests with us tonight. And this is Miss Carrie Bardell and Miss Carla Brewer, I believe. And Miss Bardell, you're the one who would like to speak tonight, is that correct? Okay, if you'll come to the podium and state your name and address, and then share with us your concern.
I actually have a flash drive if you need it. It's got photos of the issue that I'm speaking of.
Can we keep it? We'll just hold it and keep it for later, if that's okay. Thank you.
My name is Carrie Bardell. I live at 114 Meadowbrook Street in Clinton here. Me and my husband have lived in Clinton. He's lived in Clinton his entire life practically. I've been here for roughly 12, 13 years. And the concerns that we have right now are, as of 4 years ago, we have been having issues with the sewer lines and the storm drain lines. In February of 2019, we had an issue where we had a lot of rain, and raw sewage began coming out of our clean outs by the road. We have photos on the flash drive of that. Since that time, we have been in contact with Mr. Greg Jones and Greg Fay both. Greg actually came out on the original problem and saw what was going on. My yard was completely flooded, like, for lack of a better way to put it, I had a free swimming pool in my front yard. During that time, we were told, also by a man named Dan Hawkins, that I understand is no longer with CUB,
He is not.
that the lines down our road have not been updated since our homes were put in. My home was built in 1944. At that time, I understand that there were not all the businesses above us. There were not all the excess homes above us either. Physics on its own will tell you that water is going to come downhill. We have lines that cannot handle the capacity that are being put in them. For 4 years, we have dealt with this year after year. CUB did come in and bring in a system that was supposed to prevent the storm water and the sewer water from backing up into our main lines leading to the home. However, those have failed as well. This past summer, we had another rain event, and I have videos where the water is spewing from the clean out that's nearest my home. That right there tells me that those systems do not work. I understand that the problem is not going to be fixed overnight. I mean, it's just not going to happen. However, after 4 years not seeing any lines replaced of any magnitude is unacceptable, especially as a customer who has to pay our bills. If we didn't pay our bills on time, you would have your yellow trucks outside of our house turning off service. So I would like to understand, to our understanding, stormwater and sewer systems are supposed to be two completely separate systems. So therefore, why is it that we have sewage that floods our yards when it rains? And on top of that, when the lines are so outdated, why would we not start working on replacing those lines 4 years ago? We did not get those flapper systems, the backflow systems, put into place for at least a year to 18 months after the original problem. Why did it take that long to get the first temporary fix? On top of that, in March of 2021, we had smoke testing done to the lines to make sure that the systems were separated. When they smoked the sewer lines, smoke was barreling out of our storm drain in the middle of mine and Miss Brewer's driveways. If those were two separate systems, why was the smoke leaving a storm drain? In July of 2022, which is this last summer, when we had the large rain event, if the backflow systems that were put in place, and we have been guaranteed that they were supposed to help give us space to use, why are they still overflowing?
Okay. Does that conclude what you want to share with us? I don't want to interrupt you.
I guess the last thing I would want to say is, your home, when you have a hard day at work, and you go home. Is that not your place that you would expect to rest and decompress from the day? But when we come home and we see the weather, that it's going to rain for 2 or 3 days at a time, we always worry, are we going to wake up the next day with a flooded yard? And when you know that it's raw sewage, because we have things, toilet paper, tampons, feces, laying in our front yards. I have 2 children in my home. I worry about tracking that into my home and us getting sick. So, concluding what I have to say is, if this were your home, would you not expect for this problem to be fixed in a timely manner? Like not 4 years down the road?
Well, let me ask just a couple questions here, just for my clarity. When you had the major issue 4 years ago, CUB did come out and fix that and fix the yard, as I understand. Is that right? Is that you were?
After the rain had subsided, yes, they brought a crew out to clean up the mess and put down, I think it's called lye. But it took more than a year to get the system that they have in our yards in place now.
As far as the rain this past summer, I think that was one of those, I kept hearing people refer to it as an act of God, just the monsoons that,
Right.
you know, they were a 100-year deal. I do know, and I hear you, and we all are concerned, and that is hard to have that kind of issue. But I think when you have tornadoes or hurricanes or those ungodly flood that we had, it's hard that everybody's not affected on that. So that was kind of a hopefully once in a lifetime thing around here. I don't know that Clinton's had that ever in years and years. So on that case, I think we were all affected, you know, from that event. 2 things, and the others might want to join in here too, but when there is an event, if you could just let us know at the event, you know, we think we do a pretty good job of getting everybody's issues fixed immediately, as fast as we can, whether it's lines down or sewage issues or water backup problems. But we don't know what you need if you don't call and tell us at the event, like you did 4 years ago. I think you called us immediately, and we
I've actually called every time we've had this problem.
Okay.
I have stayed in contact.
Last summer you called?
No one could get through in that summer. That, like you said, that was a citywide event.
That was terrible. But the other thing is, you know, we try so much, and I say we as in CUB, we try so hard to get everybody's needs taken care of. It's just so much money to stretch out, but we are real big on grant money. I mean, we try hard to get as many grants as we can, and then we prioritize, you know, the needs as we can. But I know for a fact that your area right there is one of those prioritized needs. As we get money, the plan is to help get that area fixed and looked at, or fixed as fast as we can. Money, I mean, it's just, you can just stretch it for so far, but
Right.
you're on the radar. Your area is on the radar, that road is, and we haven't forgot you, and it's not that we're not gonna do anything, it's just we gotta have the money to do that with. So
And
it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's my understanding, that we are aware of the issue. We're glad you came and shared it with us. We hadn't forgotten the need. It's just, if we could turn this back over to our leadership and ask them to look into this and address it as we have the money to address it. We just want you to know that those of you that are on a lower level plane, we hadn't forgot you. We will do all we can to meet the needs as we have the money to do it.
I understand.
May I speak to?
Sure,
To the, first, Ms. Bardell, I don't think you're unreasonable at all. And I don't think what your expectations are unreasonable at all. I was there, as you know, and it was a mess. It was, anybody says it wasn't, is not telling the truth. It was a mess. As you know, and I committed to you then, that whatever it took, we were going to make sure that we were going to do everything we could to see that that didn't happen again. Not, we can never guarantee the lights not going out or the sewer not backing up, but certainly we can do more and should have done more and did more in order to try to protect you and your family and your children and everything else. And you were, for someone that had to deal with that, I thought y'all handled yourselves just as nicely as you could. And you know, following the opportunity that we had, that we went and we cleaned and smoked those lines, and then I told you that there was a 90 at the bottom of that road, and we went and with construction, it cost, money to do that, but we reconnected that and did what we call a sweep. So we're hoping that that squared it away. And to my knowledge, and my expectation is that it did. And I even went out, and you caught me some, because I would come after church, to when it rained, just to make sure, because we had left that cap loose in case, oh my gosh, because the last thing we didn't want, and we're not supposed to leave that thing loose, but we don't want it coming up into your house. So my personal thoughts were, because even though we saw each other on those rainy days as I came by, that was the end of the issue, of the problem. And then you asked, are these lines ever going to get redone? And I said, yes, they are. That is our hope. And I mean, we bid those things at $1 million in the budget to do that. And the cost came in at $3 million, 3 times. And we only have 4,000 customers, so you can imagine without grant money what that would do to everybody's bill, especially since I was not aware that there was anything after that happened in February of 2019. Now, the backflow preventer, which you indicated took a year, when Greg Jones came on as the department director for that, I brought up Meadowbrook and the fact that we had folks down there that had experienced a terrible, as bad as I've seen it anywhere, and to reevaluate if there's anything additional, because I told him about the sweep, he looked at the construction, anything else we can do. And that's where he come up with, well, for an assurance, we can put these backflow preventers in there. And he offered that to you all and several others too. Not everybody took it, but to install that, that's about $1,200 to install those things that serve no other purpose than to be an instrument should the worst happen. Those lines get surcharged. We have one of these great big things, and it would close off that service line. The inconvenience to you is that the only reserve you had was from your house through that service line, so the capacity, storage capacity, was only within that line. And you wouldn't get free from that until that backflow preventer opened back up when the main was clear. And I suspect that in that great rain in July, that line got surcharged, and those backflow preventers worked exactly like they're supposed to. And you may not be aware, but we check those at least every 2 months, sometimes quicker than that. We did that yesterday, knowing that you were coming, so I could say, yeah, we checked it yesterday, and it was still working. We haven't had a problem with not one that we've installed that we're aware of. So whatever happened in that July issue, and I don't know, but if that clean out by your home, if that top was loose and you had water in the tub or in the sink or in the washer or whatever, that would come out there, and that would have been what you saw, because I believe that the backflow preventer was doing exactly like it was designed to do, and the only water you had. But there's no question, back in February of 2019, everything was coming out of that clean out. But I don't know what was close to your house was any more than what you had in your home at that time, because I believe that that backflow preventer was working correctly. And going forward, if you have a problem, we're going to try to, because I can't guarantee you're never going to have a problem. But if you do have an issue, we're going to respond the best way we can. And for you to have an issue every time it rains would not be acceptable to me, providing what I hope is a quality of service to our customers. So I would take more action. I wouldn't be for saying we're going to spend $3 million to correct something that may or may not happen, or if it does happen, it's an event that would be beyond our control. So that's pretty much where I'm at. You can holler at me, and I know you know Greg. You probably talked to him, because I think you did some plumbing here, in the past year, and he may have given you some good advice or bad. I don't know, but you do have a relationship with him, and he's a nice guy. So you can obviously call him, or you can call me anytime, and then we'll respond to that. We'll send a crew out immediately, 24/7, and then if there's a bigger issue, then we'll try to work together to see what that is. But you are not an unreasonable person, and your expectations are not unreasonable. And I hope that I've explained some of the issues as to the time frame involved into what we did, because we were on that by April. We had that bid out and construction and done on that sweep. The very next, because this was the 25th of March, 25th of February, and in March is when we started cleaning those lines and smoking it. And if you saw something, I don't know that the city has a storm drain in between your lots, but some folks, and that's why we check it, they hook their downspouts up to the sewer system so they don't have to deal with water in the yard, especially if it's flat, you're in a low-lying area. And that's why we do that, because you can't do that. And they are two separate systems. And we check a lot of folks, and they've done that, and we say, that's what fills the lineup. That's what fills the lineup in front of your house. If we could get rid of what we call inflow and infiltration, we'd have a lot less problem there. But we really want to provide good service, and we don't want you frustrated. We don't want you angry at us. But most of all, we don't want you to distrust us. We won't lie to you, and we'll do everything we can to try to exceed your expectations. And certainly having sewer in your yard is an expectation that we ought to meet and beat, and we will. And I think we had in that situation.
The backflow prevention system that you're speaking of, where you said you think in the summertime that was just overflow from our homes. If that were overflow from our homes, I would expect to see things like toilet paper and things that we flush down the toilets coming out of my clean out. That was not the case. It was straight water. So that would tell me that it would not only be what was coming from my home, but what was also being flooded the line from the outside. There was not an ounce of toilet paper or waste coming out of that pipe.
Yes, ma'am, and I'm not going to go back and forth with you, because I'm going to do everything I can not to frustrate you. But and you use the word physics. The reality of it is everything that was in that pipe that was solid would have moved, and on the other side of that drain. And what would have been left, just like something solid would be at the bottom of a jar, what would be left was any water, again, anything from a drain, the sink, the bathtub, you turn water on to brush your teeth. All of that would have been sitting in your reserve of 4-inch pipe, wherever that is. Did you open that or did it pop off?
No, we had plumbing issues and we had plumbers in our home over the summer as well. We had a brand new clean out installed there. That way, if we did have another issue, plumbers had another access to come
Sure.
into our home. That pipe was connected to our main out. There is a rubber flange, I think.
Yes, ma'am.
A flange on the top of that, and then the clean out piece, the plastic clean out piece on top of that. The top plastic clean out piece is what came off.
So you didn't unscrew
No,
that?
it was still screwed tight.
It was screwed tight, but water was coming out of where it was.
Yes, there's a video on that flash drive of that. That plastic piece came out of the rubber fitting, and the water was coming between the plastic and the rubber.
Well, please call us if anything like that happens, and we'll send somebody right out. And that way we can make a determination, because we'll check that backflow preventer right then, and we'll check to see if that in fact is operating, and at least give you some comfort as to where that water's coming from.
Okay.
Can we keep this, or can we make a copy and you want that back, or what?
However you want to do it, I have them saved on my laptop at home, and that's just flash drive so that I could bring it with us.
Okay, if you will allow us to keep that so that we can see it and have some history
Yeah,
of pictures,
that's fine.
is that okay? Is that
Everything is broke down, files by address and by year.
Okay, well, we'll hold on to that. If you ever want it back, it'll be here with probably, I guess, Mr. Jones here, since that's kind of his department.
Yes, ma'am.
We'll keep that here, but that way that allows us to see what you're talking about. So
Sure.
we appreciate you coming, and on behalf of the board, we're sorry that you've had to go through sewer in your yard. Everything you said is true. That's not fair for anybody to have to do that. But just like Mr. Fay said, we assure you we'll be out there as fast as we can if you call us if you have another issue. And hopefully down the road, we'll get enough grant money to be able to address again whatever we need to in your area, so this won't happen again. But in the meantime, I think we've done all that we can do at the moment, but just call us if there's an emergency, a crisis at the moment, and I think we'll be
Yes,
right
ma'am.
out there just as fast as we can. But we won't forget you, we won't forget about your issue, and we have documentation, and we'll work on it as fast as we can as we get future money. Is that okay?
Yeah,
With you?
I guess my only parting comment would be, if this was your homes, would you want your children and your grandchildren to be able to play in their yard and not worry about tracking in human waste and germs into your home? When this first happened, my daughter wasn't even a year old. So we don't let her play in the front yard because God knows what's in our yard now. If you wanted to sell your home, we would have to disclose to our buyers, you're going to have a sewer problem.
Well, we hear you, and we're sorry you've had to go through what you've had to go through, but we've got you on the radar and that area, that road too. Okay? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have before us the minutes to look at, and do we have a motion for approval of the minutes?
So moved.
And do we have a second? And do we have any edits, suggestions, or anything we need to correct on the minutes? Okay, all in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? And the minutes are approved. And then the vouchers, so we've had a chance to look at those. Do we have a motion to pass those?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, and do I hear a second?
Second.
And does anyone have any questions about anything, any of the vouchers? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And any disapproval, say aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. And the monthly reports, do I hear approval for those? reports for December. I guess we need to go first, right,
Yes,
Mr.
ma'am.
Joe? Sorry about that. I've got my mind on something else.
Sewer. Not on sewer. So
My
do I.
mind's in the sewer. Let's,
Well, I'm gonna say a few words, Dudley, before you do, if that's all right, because it's one of my favorite subjects. In December, when you have a warm month, we pay TVA on peak demand, and peak demand is so important, and we've had PowerPoints on peak demand. Some of you have seen those. The highest hour within the month, whenever that is, whatever the demand is the highest in that month, TVA charges us $10.35 per kW. A kW is 10 100-watt bulbs, so it's not much. We charge about 10 cents for that. TVA bills us 8 cents for that, and we're making about 2 cents on that, and we're paying $10.35. So you can see, in order to overcome the 10.35 per kW, you've got to have a lot of kWh in order to stack on top of that to meet that. So if you peak, if you have warm, and on the last day of the month you peak, then you're in trouble. And that's what essentially happened to us in December. If you remember, we had freezing weather right there at Christmas. That's when we peaked. And the rest of the month was relatively warm. So we didn't have enough kWh to overcome. All the utilities had that problem because of the warm weather coupled with the freezing cold peak. Even with that peak, we shaved on our dynamic voltage reduction, which was all during the time of the rolling blackouts. We saved $88,000. We reduced our peak with this voltage regulation reduction by 88,000. With the rest of our virtual power plant, what's about 140,000?
47.
147,000 is what we were able to shave off of that demand that peaked in that 1 hour. So our sister utilities are paying that because they don't have that capability. We would then be, instead of 80-some in brackets, it would be that plus 147, and y'all can count up, that's 220-something the way I count it. We would be that much in the hole. But it's the difference, and we call it power factor. Our power factor generally runs around 60, and the power factor in December of 2022, it was like 40-something. What was it, Doug?
47.
47? 47. And that difference is what killed us. So if y'all got a question on that, I can answer, but if not, I'll turn it back over to Doug because water and sewer's real bright.
I'll dig a little deeper on what Greg said there, and if you let's go to this statement right here. This right here, the two lines you look at here to see what you can work off of are your electric sales less your power cost. So electric sales less your power cost. So you see last year the electric sales was about 770,000 less than this year. But the power cost was $1.28 million more this year. So even though our sales were up 700,000, our power cost was up $1.28 million. So that difference right there is a $500,000 difference in what we got to start with from day one to pay our bills. And as Greg said, it all based, you see I highlighted these, this was last month, December degree days. And you see these, we were running 8, 10 degree days, and then come 23rd, 24th, 25th, 26th, you get 41, 51. That 51 right there is where we set that peak. And then all of a sudden you drop down to 31, 28, 19, 15, and 10 on your degree days. So as Greg said, you don't have the kilowatt hour sales to pay for that peak right there of 51. And that was all residential. So that's where the big difference came in. And that's why it's been an anomaly of a year with the storm in July, the big storm in July, and now we have this rare December where we normally make good money as we did last year, and because of the peak, it killed us. So we ended up in the red for the month. Other expenses are pretty much in line of what we expected. It's just the gap between the sales and the power costs. We're not making the margin. Everybody got that? So that's why we ended up in the red for the month.
And your TVA bill is the first of the month to the last day of the month? Is that
That's
how it
correct.
sounds? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, there is a little bit of a window there where we might can make some of that up, because what we bill residential customers is not exactly first of the month
Correct.
to the
That's
end
the
of
reason
the
I
month.
asked.
That window moves all month long, and then you might ask, well, why don't you just bill everybody first of the month, the end of the month? Well, I'd have everybody's bill due the same day up there, and we couldn't survive that way, so. But that's why it is what it is. Maybe we'll make some of that back next month, but January, if you look at the month of January, overall, sales aren't gonna be that much either. So I don't know that we're gonna make a whole lot of that back. We're okay though. This electric department's okay. We're in good shape. Water and sewer department had a good solid month, and you know, they're running well ahead of their forecast. 34,000 ahead of their forecast so far year to date. So that's pretty good. And that's all I've got, unless you got any specific questions.
Any questions or comments?
What is, excuse me, TVA's justification for the peak demand charging system?
They have to have the facility in play, just like we do, in order to meet whatever you require. So they've got assets in the ground to meet this great big demand, and so they charge you a fixed amount for having those assets available to meet whatever demand that you have. And that's why we charge our industry. We also have a demand charge on our industry. What will come, I predict,
Residential,
is the residential.
especially with smart meters.
Residential will come because you've got now a shift for alternative energy, and when people start getting electric vehicles, they're going to come after work at 5:30 and plug it in on August the 15th when it's 94 degrees outside, and that's going to push our peak up. And we won't be able to pay $10.35 a kW unless you're going to pay part of that, and because you're pushing our peak, you see. And there are no price signals to the residential customer for a time of use. And we've got the capability here in order to bill depending on when you use the power. So if you use power off peak, you'll be paying less than what you're paying now. If you use power on peak, you'll be paying a considerable amount more. KUB is starting to dabble in this,
It was on the news this week, wasn't it?
and where I think you can save 4 cents a kWh or pay 11 cents more, figure out how that makes good sense to you. I don't know, but that's what'll come, and we'll hold off on doing that as long as we can, because I believe we've got a responsibility to our customers in that without education on this use, those that are least prepared to pay a high bill are going to be most negatively impacted. We have got to change the culture of the way you use power before we start penalizing you on how you use your power. And that is with education. You have smart appliances where you time your dryer. Don't dry because the utility will send price signals out when they're on peak. And then the smart appliance will not operate during that peak time and will send signals out when it's low peak and you get the lowest price, and then you can dry your clothes at 2 o'clock in the morning. You know, it was great. So, or your hot water heater can heat your water at 4 in the morning instead of 6:30 in the morning when you get in the shower. So those things are coming, no doubt about it. And that's why TVA charges it, and that's why we charge our industrial, commercial customers, and that's why we will be eventually charging our residential customers, because irrespective of when it is, when people turn that light switch on, they expect the lights to come on. And you're gonna have to have the facilities in place and in ground to do it.
Any others? Okay, thank you for going over those reports before we vote on it. Now we're ready to vote. So, do I have a motion for approval of the monthly December reports?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And anyone opposed by like sign? And all in favor of accepting the monthly reports, please say aye. Aye. And now, the project status reports. Mr. General Manager, can you go over those for us?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We're tracking 4 in the electric department. Really, we're on a great trajectory here. That first one, that 3-and-odd ACSR at Glen Avenue, that feeder upgrade, we anticipated that to be completed by the end of the month, but the rain has stalled us up, and it'll probably be pushed into now early March. But everything else continues to go well, and we anticipate it to be completed during the scheduled time. Most of those, well, on Chesterfield will be the end of March, and then we're just starting those on Stony 4 and Crestwood Drive. Todd, did you want to add anything to that? Because that's pretty much
No,
it, right?
that's it. We don't anticipate, even though that first one may push into March, our overall schedule for the year shouldn't change. We should have no problems with that.
Okay. This doesn't take approval, but are there any questions? Okay, moving on to approval of the work order. Mr. General Manager?
I'd like to draw your attention to work order 1013 in the Water Department. This is Lost Ridge Water Tank. You may recall this, we have a $350,000 budget on. This is the tank that is associated in the area where Aspire Park is. And the Hollingsworth Foundation had talked to us from the very beginning about trying to have some influence on the color that we painted that, because they want it more to match into the scheme of things. Joe is very sensitive to aesthetics, and I give him credit because everything that he has, that he owns, he works hard and keeps it at first rate. You know, the get and goes, they're out there shining that stuff up, the signs for Carriage Trace, he's out there reworking those. He does a great job on doing that. The man understands aesthetics, and he wanted to say, you know, I love your color, but that aqua blue is just not working for me, you know, and it's so stark. So we agreed, as long as it was something that wasn't so outrageous that we couldn't live with, that we would be glad to work with him. But if there was a cost differentiation between what we would normally put on there and what he wanted, then that cost difference he would have to pay 100% of. And that we wouldn't paint this reservoir until it met our schedule now, which is about every 10 years, right, Greg? And because of the time lag in that project over there, it matched up pretty well, because now we're ready to bid that out, because what we got to do is we have to drain it. They go in and sandblast the inside of it. I mean, it's a whole big deal in order to what they do. It's just not slapping some paint out there. So all of that essentially reconstruction of that, or refurbishing that reservoir. We bid it out as we normally would, and then we put an adder on there. Should we change the paint to meet his paint color, and I think it's variations of green as it goes up. And he's got to it that he wanted around, so if you flew a plane over there, and that's getting around to it, it's part of the theme of the park. As long as it's up on top and we're not seeing it, and it doesn't say, Hollingsworth Corporation on it, we're good to go. That was about $30,000, and this work order, it gives us authority to move forward in getting it painted. And then when we award, the next thing I'm going to ask you to do is.
Here's what I found.
Thank you so much. Then we're going to award this to the contractor, and in that, you'll see that there's a $30,000 adder addendum, and that $30,000 is what the Hollingsworth or the Aspire Corporation or Foundation will be responsible for. So I asked your approval on the, for 300 and, I think it's 353,000. I turned pages and lost it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Work order 1013 for $350,600.
Okay. Do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, does anyone have any questions?
I just
about
want to
this?
reiterate the fact that it is time to do this.
Oh, yeah.
In our maintenance schedule, if we looked back and if anybody came back.
Irrespective of
If
this.
anybody came back later on and said, about every 8 to 10 years or 10 to 11 years,
Absolutely.
this is, okay.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for asking that, because we would have bowed up.
Yeah,
Oh.
I thought so.
We talked to him because I was willing to do it early if he paid us the difference of doing it early.
Right.
And I think he would have been up for that had his time schedule moved, but it just happened to work with our normal schedule.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor to approve this work order, say aye.
Aye.
And any opposed, say aye. Okay, that passes unanimously. And then we go to the approval of the actual contract.
Yes, ma'am. Our C2RL, Richard Yarber has been with us for a long, long time. We asked them to help us with the bid process on this, and they were able to secure a total of 9 bids, although you only see a portion of those that actually bid on it. But G&L Tank and Sandblasting and Coating were low. They bid for us to do $300,000, which fell in pretty much in line with what our expectations were. And the adder on that was $30,000 for the additional painting, exterior painting. So I recommend that we award this bid to G&L for the $330,000, and we will be able to invoice the foundation, Aspire Foundation, for their portion or share of that painting.
Okay, do I hear a motion for approval?
So moved.
And do I hear a second?
Second.
And are there comments or questions? I had one, Greg,
Yes, ma'am.
that's different than the way we've done before, where we get someone to bid it for us?
No, this is our consultants that we do, and that's a standard of what we do.
Okay, so that's,
They're really able to get more competitive bids, and then because they spec it out,
okay,
so they're in there and they do all the full spec
Okay.
and they send it out.
okay. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor, say yes. Yes, and any opposed? Okay, that proves to pass unanimously. And other business?
Yes, ma'am. We've been asked and we have agreed to host the Anderson County Youth Leadership Class of 2023, and that'll be on March the 9th, and also the Adult Leadership Class on April the 11th. Our topic will be how CUB achieves our core 3 goals of providing our customers with low rates, unmatched reliability, and great service. In addition to reviewing the state-of-the-art operations center, I'll also give them a primer on our virtual power plant and Flizzer, because that is unique to CUB. And second, you may be aware that the state legislature enacted an amendment in December, TCA Code Annotated Title 7, Chapter 51, Consolidated Governments and Local Governmental Functions and Entities, that the amendment affects certain municipal utilities in Tennessee and has an implementation mandate of July 1, 2023. Public utilities that provide electric, water, and wastewater or natural gas will now be required to prepare and implement a cybersecurity plan to provide for the protection of the utilities, facilities, and unauthorized use, altercation, ransom, or destruction of electrical data. In addition, the amendment requires utilities to assess and update cybersecurity plans every 2 years to address new threats. CUB is currently in the process of documenting our cyber process, procedures, and overall security strategy. Our plan includes security risk assessment, security goals, evaluation of technology, security framework, security policies, risk management plan, implementation of security strategy, and evaluation of security strategy. And we're going to incorporate our cybersecurity practices of backup of data, cybersecurity awareness training, patch management, discontinuing end-of-life software, firewall management, security gap audits or analysis, and multi-factor authorizations. And we'll submit this to the state, this plan, by the mandated date of July 1, 2023. I just wanted you to be aware that we're on it, and the bottom line is we're going to pretty much just now document in a plan form what we're already doing.
Are we tied in with the terrorism task force or local PD such that we get notified if there's information out there floating around that might pertain to us?
That would be tied in, you know, we have got multiple avenues for that depending on where the threat is with mostly it'll be with either water or with electric. So we've got TDEC and we've got certainly TDA will do that. We've got to tie in through our Central Service Association. An individual there is on the Homeland Security Task Force. He's invited me to apply for that too, by the way, which would put me on alert to where I would then have to do some movement here. Not sure I want to do that, but to answer your question, we've got multiple agencies and multiple lines for identifying threats depending on where they come from.
You know, we've got a really good local source here. Our ex-police chief, who runs the Law Enforcement Academy at UT.
Yes.
Has staff on the terrorism task force, and he's got a really close tie to those folks if there are things that apply to us.
There are, and from time to time we get alerts. You're into two different categories, where they're into the physical threat, where there is actionable evidence that we've got a group that is now trying to physically damage a facility, they would target the water plant, they would target one of the substations is what we think. So then you get the cyber attack. That is different to where, and we've got in play, and I won't be specific, but we've got in play a lot of security factors associated with their ability to access into us. If they can get to the Pentagon, I'm not saying that they can't get to us, but we've got ample security that is and walls in place, firewalls in place to protect us from everyone except the maybe on a national level attack. If we've got a North Korea or China or an Iran or somebody like that targeting us. And if they target Clinton, I'd say we won't be the first on the list.
Well, even with the less sophisticated hackers, what worked yesterday, they're probably ahead of tomorrow.
Oh, I think you're right. I think you're right. We have so much, it irritates me because it blocks so much of what we try to do. But that's in place.
Good.
Does anybody else have a comment? Thank you for going over that. Now that we have Chinese spy balloons going over Clinton, it just made me wonder.
The general,
What we have going
the general
on.
said that if you wear a watch, they could tell what time it is.
Yeah,
That's sophisticated.
that's something.
With the satellites, I'm not sure I quite understand the big deal about.
Tenfold. This is what I'm saying like I know. What I understand, Steve, is these balloons provide photo resolution that is tenfold what a satellite can do. Tenfold.
I've seen satellites that can read this document.
I know.
from-
So you figure tenfold, right?
We used to know when the satellites came over Y-12, we had certain operations that we just didn't do from
Right.
10 to 3 or whatever. We could track all of that, so I'm not sure what else the balloon gives them.
I don't know that they can track the balloons.
Okay, anything else, Mr. Fay, that you
No,
want
ma'am.
to share?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Any comment? You have questions?
Well, Ms. Bardell, when she came in, she brought the thumb drive, and I just wanted to make sure that we pay due diligence to it.
Yes, sir.
And that someone will look at that, between now and the next meeting, and if there's anything that, adds, that we don't know about the whole situation, that you share that with
Sure.
the board the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay. Anybody else, Jim?
Nope.
Steve? Okay, the only thing else I want to say is, I sent an email out, I hope it got to everybody. Just within days of our meeting where Greg got very passionate about, did everybody share in the utility energy reductions, or was it just a handful? Did you all see where TVA had that committee going to review that? I thought that has to have Greg Fay's handprint right on it, so we got a good leader here, making sure
Thank
that
you.
we all
They,
are all.
they had a vice
compliant.
president come out, and I've got another one coming out next Wednesday. And I've got a whole list of stuff.
I'm all for, and we all are, that everybody does their part, not just a handful of us do our part. So thank you for taking the lead.
Thank you.
Okay, that is everything. Thank you for a good meeting.